Okay, guys, another episode of the things I wish I knew about money. I'm your host, Camille Smith.
And I'm your co-host, your boy, Dre. Another Saturday.
Another Saturday. We're loving it. It's kind of gloomy, but I mean, we're making the best of it, right? The weather's warm. The weather is lovely.
It's perfect.
We have a lovely, lovely guest upon us. I'm just ecstatic because it's our episode 29, and I just feel like we keep getting wonderful people on as a guest to just appreciate like how the community is and the things to help the community. And Ruby, it's such an honor for you taking the time to be with us. I have to big up Andre because he's the main one that was able to get you on here. So I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you. And Andre, did you want to say anything to our lovely guest?
Yeah, no, big up, just like Camille said, we are super excited and grateful. This was all, Ruby, when she heard community, she was ready and willing to come on board because she's a big advocate for the community. And, we were super excited when she said yes, that she's on board. And we are, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And actually, I think the weather is fantastic outside today. It's not as muggy as it was yesterday. And so I think it's the perfect day, puts me in the perfect mood. And being with you, lovely people, Andre, Camille, thank you so much for inviting me on. And it's not that hard, actually. I also want to tell, not that you're not special, you are special, but I also want to tell your listeners that really the connection between people and their representatives shouldn't be so hard. They should be able to reach out to their member of parliament or member of provincial parliament or local, city councillor and all of that quite easily. And my whole goal has been, since I was elected in 2015, to be as accessible as possible. I want to be the most accessible MP in Canada, if possible. So I've been working towards that, trying to figure out how I can proactively reach out and how I can make sure people aren't nervous about approaching my office if they want to talk about anything. So, I want to tell all your viewers right at the start that if they want to find out who their member of parliament is, they simply need to go online and say, find my MP. You can put that in your Google search and you'll come up with a website that will ask you for your postal code. It'll be the House of Commons website. Put your postal code in and it will shoot out who your member of parliament is. So it really is that easy. And then along with that member of parliament information as to how you can contact them will all be under there. So yeah, email. These days, if somebody emails enough about a certain topic, it does alert us to the fact that, okay, where there are a few, there are many people concerned about this issue. Or you pick up and you call. And so you can proactively let people know how you feel about different matters without, us having to come to you, even though we're trying, but that's sometimes more difficult to reach out to every single person. And like I was telling you, Andre, I was making calls earlier today proactively to people in the riding, but when we do that, we only get a 30% contact rate because people are either not home the time you called or, or you had the wrong number or whatnot. So, you can reach out to us and we definitely will try to come to your door when COVID is over, try to reach you on the phone.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I like the fact that you spoke about being accessible and being the most accessible in Canada. and being nervous. It's like, I remember the first time I wrote an email to an MP, and it's like, oh my God, I'm actually writing to an MP. Like, is my grammar good? Do I call the person by the first name? Do I put the most honorable? So there's just so many
Yeah.
things that you're considering
Right.
before.
Right. You're right. You know, that's true. I think I remember feeling that when I was younger as well. So sometimes we forget, you know, don't worry about the titles, don't worry about the formalities, just get the email address right and write your thoughts down, because we do read all of those emails. We have a team, of course, like you might be thinking, oh, is the MP really going to read this? But we have a team dedicated to this, to flag all the issues coming in. And then we do have responses that go out if you live in our constituency. Of course, there's some things we get thousands of letters on Canada-wide, but you know, we can only handle so much. We only have, we have a team, we have a small team though. So our preference definitely is to respond to our constituents. So that's why it's really important to reach out to your representative so that you'll be more likely to get a response.
Get a response. That makes perfect sense.
And I heard that you said you normally get like 1,000 of emails. And what are some of the main concerns that you've been noticing as of late, I guess you'd say?
They come and go. I find you know, people who are tuned into or members of the David Suzuki Foundation or different organizations that have to do with animal rights and environmental laws, they're consistently always out there. They're very active, but other issues kind of come and go. So there's ebbs and flows. Like right now, the Palestinian issue and what's happening in the West Bank and Gaza is hot. So we're getting a lot of emails about that, right? More so on the Palestinian humanitarian side, but of course, the Israeli point of view as well. So I would say, you know, and then my constituency, you know, whenever there is an issue of justice, I think people tend to write in about that. So definitely we had, you know, the issue of DeAndre Campbell. I remember getting a lot of emails about that. I have a large South Asian population as well. There was a big protest happening that resonated with people here in India called the Farmers Protest. I got more emails than I've ever gotten in my career so far about that issue. And so it just depends on the time of year. The tax issue, there was a couple of years back, there was this big hot tax issue about trying to, you know, have people not save all of their money inside corporations and trying to make sure they were claiming the right amount of personal income tax and making sure that they were investing back in and not, you know, just hiding money in their corporations. And I'll probably get a lot of flack for saying that in the way that I did. But of course, businesses do need to have a good amount of money there to protect themselves, to make sure in downturn times like what we're facing right now, they have a good cushion there. So it wasn't about that, but there was a lot of pushback on that, because I do think people generally that were concerned about that, or I've got to say, like, highly motivated because it involves your personal finances. They also have a lot of resources, like their accountants telling them things, and you know, the education and the confidence to really reach out and advocate on their behalf. So that was a very large email campaign from what I remember. And the government moved back on some of those changes. We reversed and didn't move forward with some of the things that we had in store. So advocacy does work. It is important.
It is important. I completely agree. And you know, interestingly, I would think that, you know, like, we'd probably get hearing a lot more from like small businesses right now in terms of the impact on COVID. Is that something that you're getting a lot of too?
Oh my God. Now that we're coming on to the COVID issue, I don't think I've ever interacted with small businesses as much as I have through this pandemic. Before, it really was us proactively trying to engage with businesses, but now it's been, since last March, it was businesses reaching out with really like a lot of confusion, especially around the first 6 months of the pandemic. We were trying to create new programs that never existed before. We were also at the same time learning how those programs may not have been created with all things in mind. And so we were also trying to adapt and change those programs on the fly. And so we were having daily caucus meetings, and caucus is our, party affiliated MPs. So, the Conservatives have a caucus, the NDP have a caucus, the Liberal government has a caucus, and we were, we usually meet once a week generally during Parliament sitting weeks, and if there are other issues on non-sitting weeks as well. But we were meeting daily during the pandemic, every single day, to speak about what we were hearing from our constituents, and then try to feed in what they were needing. So CERB rolled out pretty quickly, and CERB, sure, you may say it had, some flaws, but our goal at that time was to make it as easy as possible and to get that money into the hands of people within weeks, so that they could put food on the table and they could pay, their essentials.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't a perfect solution. I know there were people saying, well, I made more, I made less, but really it was there to roll money out quickly. And then there was the EI program as well that's been modified. And then there was, the CEBA program, the Canada Business account, where people could get loans businesses could get loans up to 60,000, and 20,000 of that is non-repayable.
Right.
Wage subsidy, rent assistance programs, whole bunch of stuff that was rolled out in the first 6 months and is still continuing right now.
Yeah.
But at this point, the programs have, there's not major changes your listeners should expect to some of those programs, other than a few that have been mentioned in the budget, because they are what they are at this point. We're just trying to continue them, but there will be a change to the wage subsidy program. There's going to be a new rehiring program starting June 6th. So it's not just for the employees that you held on to during the pandemic. It's for the employees that you had to let go of and you want to bring them back, or new hires, or people whose hours you want to increase because you had to bring their hours down. So we're really trying to figure out how we hit that 1 million jobs by the end of the year and get people back to work.
That's impressive. Yeah. It's really about stimulating the economy, and the best way to do that is through jobs. And I do see the improvements. Of course, just like you said, there were hiccups along the way, but it was a changing situation, and everyone was just trying to figure out what was going on. And myself, I've kept abreast of the changes, and I see the improvements. For example, the government made it easier for other businesses to access the loans, because at first you had to have a business account. And I've seen where they changed that so that you don't have to have a business account if you so they were making some improvements.
You can create one. So like those that didn't have one can move and go to their bank and create one, because they did have a business. They just didn't do their business through a normal business account. And payroll was an issue too. At first, it was only for people with over a certain amount of payroll expenses. And then we put in another layer where you could show if you don't have payroll, at least $40,000 of non-deferrable expenses, which allowed a lot more businesses to qualify that were family-run, individually owned businesses. So
no, that is super cool, and I mean, it sounds super stressful. I haven't been as involved in everything as you are, and just you talking about it. It just sounds so stressful. So tell Camille and I and the listeners, what inspired you to want to, go into politics, or to, run for the party that you run for? Just tell us about that.
So I would say it was kind of a journey like everyone has throughout their lives, things, opportunities present themselves, ideas come in and out of your mind. Politics was definitely not something new to me in some ways, but once again, I got to say, you don't have to be in love with politics your whole life to get into politics. We have a lot of people who've come into politics that hated politics, didn't want anything to do with it, didn't get educated necessarily in political science, but did other things and have strong opinions. So I would say if you have strong opinions, you really want to figure out how you can get involved and make a change, there's lots of places for you to effect change. For me, it was something I was interested in since I was a very young person, because I came from a very politically active family. My father was really interested in politics. And so the conversation around the dinner table was often, what is government doing? What's happening in politics? All that stuff. Even as a new immigrant, my parents were new immigrants to this country in the 70s. They quickly wanted to contribute and learn about the process here. And so I felt like I was on that journey along with them, and really took note of things when they were happening in my community. In student politics, I got involved. So if you have any young listeners, get involved in student politics. You have a student body council. I definitely got involved there. I ran for president of my high school when I was just coming out of grade 9. I was being a little too ambitious. I didn't win. I did not win.
You want to be the president in grade 9? That's impressive.
Yeah. I didn't win because I was a little over my head at that point. I think wanting, I had just finished grade 9, but I did get on the body, and I did have.
I think you won with the motivation and the mindset you had, even though you didn't formally get the position.
Yeah, and that's what I think. You should just put your foot in, into that space and take that space. I think we need more minorities to, feel like. I know they don't see themselves there, and I think that's why it's important for some of us that maybe have that confidence to get ourselves out there so others can see themselves in us. And, that's kind of what inspired me along the way. So different protests, being an activist when I was younger in high school, going, on school walkouts and all these things. And the only time I'd ever been to Parliament Hill was to protest things on the lawn. I'd never gone into the building until I got elected. And so I think just being civically engaged and having that mindset, me on that journey. I did go to law school eventually after I finished my undergrad in political science. And law school, I think, was the reason I was motivated to get into law is because I knew I wanted to advocate for people and be their voice. And so you can do that as a lawyer, you can do that as a social worker, you can do that in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
But I think, law is a difficult career too, and I will go back into it. I did love it, but you can't always choose the type of work you want to do. If you end up working for a law firm, sometimes you're not doing exactly something that's completely fulfilling you, your heart and your soul. So although I did some pro bono work on the side, I felt I wanted to give this a shot. And honestly speaking, in 2015, the Liberal Party had taken a big dive. In 2011, the previous election to the 2015 one, we had lost more seats than ever in the history of this country. And we're in third party status. We also had a new leader, though, that inspired people, that was young and fresh, who is our prime minister today, Justin Trudeau. And I think he inspired a lot of younger people to step forward into the party, where politics used to be a very old white person, domain. After that election, we saw in the 2015 election, a lot of more people that looked like you or me were starting to step forward. So I think there was that renewed energy, and I really felt I wanted to give it a shot. There were some barriers. There were definitely challenges. I also had a 1-year-old at the time. So that was a very difficult decision. It's not easy to be a member of parliament or even be a candidate and run a campaign when you have a young family. But I had a good group of people around me. So that's another thing. I think you need to surround yourself with people who motivate you and don't bring you down. And I had I had family that motivated me. My father motivated me a lot. And I have to really say I owe this to my dad, because every time I had a doubt, my dad was saying, don't doubt yourself, just do it. We're here to support you. But there were a lot of other people that did also. I can't say it was perfect. There were a lot of people saying, "Are you out of your mind? Why are you doing this? How could you do this to your family? How could you do?" So there were a lot of things that brought me down along the way and made me think whether I was doing the right thing. But I think the people closest to me were saying the right things. So lo and behold, I took the chance, and it was a long shot, but I made it, and I'm here. So that's what I want to say to other people that, don't think they can do it, is that you have to own the space. You really have to occupy it and get in there. And voting is the first step. Voting and making sure your voice is heard through that means. And then, of course, there's so many other things that we did can talk about.
Wow, I feel so inspired. That was amazing. I feel very
Ruby,
inspired.
don't be surprised that Andre's gonna be coming up.
I won't be surprised. And you know what? We have in Brampton Center, we have a seat that is unoccupied right now. We do have a great Black candidate that is, or contestant that is running for that nomination. But Andre, if we have a great Filipino one that's running for that. There's a lot of people running in that area right now, though. All I can say is, and there's quite a few really great ones. But if you ever need advice as to, how do you go through that process? Because those initial stages, they are very daunting. And sometimes that's the hardest step, is getting through that nomination, becoming a candidate for whatever party it is. I'm not here to say for just this party, you're, align yourself, go and look at the platforms, go and look at, the history and what the different parties stand for, and become a member. You'll get notified about different events that party is having. That will be a way for you to get involved, because at least you'll have knowledge of what's happening in your area with whatever party you align yourself with. And then that is your foot in through the door, and you'll learn a little bit, and then you can meet the right people to ask the right questions. But I'm always here for anyone who wants to venture into politics and has some questions about how to do it.
Absolutely. Really appreciate that. And we from our end, we're all about community. And even if like, I love politics, I've always loved politics. If I end up in politics, I'll have the same great and positive vibe and energy and influence over the community, and wanting to help people. And if I don't end up in politics, it's going to be the same, because for me, at the end of the day, it comes back to one thing, and it's building community for me. And I'm pretty sure it's the same for Camille as well.
Absolutely.
Right? And so,
but I know you.
A lot of people actually tell me to go into politics more so than I tell myself to go into politics.
Really?
But we'll see.
That's great. That is great. That means, you have something in you, and people are seeing it. So you just need to recognize it yourself and take that step out, right? It's all, and this platform gives you the ability to create a network. So I think having this platform is a good way to start.
Absolutely.
And I like what you said, Ruby, about being like believing in yourself. And I'm so happy that you have your family and your inner circle that was able to, commend you and keep you pushing, because the outside noise sometimes stops you from doing what you're passionate about. So I'm very happy that you're able to push through, especially because you're very passionate about it. Because I could just tell just by what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. And you know what? I wonder, they may not have done the studies or have the numbers yet, but women are. They do have numbers as to women having to be asked to run numerous times. Like, I think the numbers show like over 10 times before they'll actually say yes. That's not generally the case with men. They're saying men don't even have to be asked, let alone, if they're asked, they're ready to go, because that there's just more of an innate, maybe the way we're raised. A lot of women will say, oh, do I have the right credentials? Maybe I should get one more degree or get more experience in this area before I go in there. But men generally don't. But I wonder whether minorities, because I don't know if the whole cross section has been divided in that way.
Right.
whether men of, Black men or BIPOC communities have a different outlook on that as well. I would think so, because most people that have approached me have said, well, it's harder in my community, there's not the same kind of support or this or that. And so
Mhm.
I have heard a lot of those conversations, especially as I've been having them with more Black candidates that are interested in running.
Yeah, definitely would be a super interesting conversation. And you're right, like even in terms of like I look at the dynamics with my wife and I, whereas I think I'm more likely to make decisions with very little information, whereas my wife usually needs more information. She's gonna be like, you know what, let me take this back, think about it. I can't give you a decision now. Whereas
Yeah.
I'm like, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it.
Yeah, so we're wired differently, right?
Yeah.
Men are more risk takers, and that's why I think you even see within entrepreneurship a little bit of that difference. Although women,
Yeah.
we are trying to encourage them through different
Yeah.
federal programs and stuff like that to really get into entrepreneurship more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's great seeing you here, like representing women, representing people of color, and representing entrepreneurs. Like we talk about entrepreneurship all the time. Camille has her platform that talks about entrepreneurship. I have the same. I'm a big advocate for that, especially within BIPOC communities, and we've been working with a lot of incredible organizations. So behind the scenes, we spoke about a couple programs or initiatives that the government is working on, and I believe there was topics around anti-racism support, the Canada Student Grant, home buyers incentives. These are all great initiatives, and can really benefit the community. Tell us about those initiatives.
Yeah. So there are some great programs that are in this budget. The budget isn't passed. So I also I don't know, your program is more about financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and all of that stuff. I'm not an economist or an expert in finances, but I do want to say that in terms of people listening to when the provincial budget comes out and the federal budget comes out, what does that mean? What is the budget necessarily, right? How does that end up affecting me at the end of the day? And how can I take advantage of the things that have been mentioned in the budget? And so I would say a budget is a document that is a guideline for a government to create different programs. It's separating and saying, we're going to assign this much money to this area, this much money for this area for the next year, 2 years, 10-year plan. And how much we're also going to get back in revenues and all of that stuff. So what does that, outlook look like? And in this budget, I would say the single-handed largest investment that is in this budget is for childcare. That's one thing that we didn't plan on discussing, but I thought I just—
That was great. Sorry, Ruby. So we have this little alarm thing that was sound when time we hear something that's incredible. So I'm going to ask Camille to sound the alarm for that.
I'm going to do it for the parents because I'm always the one that gets screwed over.
So
yeah,
we're going to sound the alarm and then you can continue telling us about it.
And it's important, especially for those new entrepreneurs too, right? You spend so much time on your own business that I don't think sometimes we realize. We think about the people working, and we don't think enough about some of those new entrepreneurs. And you have to dedicate day and night sometimes, and you need that flexibility, you need that help. So even if your children aren't in school or aren't in school, I think this is a good direction to head in, because we've seen the benefits that Quebec has had from a really great, strong early learning and childcare program. The benefits they've had, their female women in the workforce in Quebec was actually, the numbers were lower than the national average before they moved towards this program in the 90s. And after they did, we saw that female participation in the workforce in Quebec actually rose above the national average after having affordable childcare. And of course, it does help the male and female or whatever parenting situation you have. It helps small families with young kids. But disproportionately, we have seen negative effects when it comes to women in the workforce in this pandemic. We've seen really devastating numbers of the amount of women that have pulled out of the workforce, that have put their careers on hold, that are probably not going to, unfortunately, go down that road of starting that new business that they had their hopes on. So in so many ways, the stats are showing us that half of our population has been impacted greatly by this pandemic. And when there is a choice to be made, oftentimes women are the ones that end up making that choice to stay home, because there's not a really appealing choice right now. Paying $1,600 a month for childcare, which is the average here in the GTA, is not an option for a lot of families. It's not a good option. So we want to bring it down by 50% through this budget, the investment of $30 billion. We're going to bring it down 50% by next year. And then after that, our goal in the next 5 years is to have it by 2026, have it at $10 a day for childcare across the country.
You want it again?
No, you know what? Like, honestly, I just go back, like, as you're talking, it's like, I'm going back to when I became a Canadian citizen and I took that oath of office. And it's like, this is just truly what it means to be Canadian, looking after oneself, one family, and the community.
Yeah, I think it can be transformational. Yeah, I would use the word transformational. It could be a really big change for the way we work and how we think within Canada. Just like we pride ourselves in our having healthcare, and of course, there's lots of improvements. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we have necessarily the best healthcare system, but we as Canadians do have pride that we have a public healthcare system, and so I think this could become one of those things of pride if it does work out. And so where people do in politics get a little frustrated is that things are announced and they don't roll out in how they expected them to roll out. So even I am, I pinch myself and I do take it with a grain of salt that just because we announced it doesn't mean it may happen exactly like the way we have planned, but we are going to work very hard to make it happen and to talk to the provinces, because there is provincial jurisdiction involved, and so we have to get them on board. But I do think a lot of provinces are already really excited. Atlantic provinces have been saying, yes, we have already been investing so much money. We want the federal dollars, bring the federal dollars in so that we can have a program that works better for our people. And Ontario is holding out a little bit right now, but let's get past this pandemic. I think we can bring them to the table to make sure that, they are working together collaboratively with us on this program, and we can get more people back into the workforce. Remember when you said, Andre, it's about jobs? It's about making sure we can get people back to work too. And that creates jobs, right? Also, and if we have more involvement and we're using our skills and putting them to work into the workforce. There are a lot of professionals I know that are women that take 5 years off, 6 years off from their careers because they need to raise their kids, right? There's no other choice. And then what happens? Like, they end up having this huge gap in their resume, and then they're not as employable. Employers look at them in a different light and they wonder, why have you been out of the workforce for so long? And so I hear this story from a lot of women and a lot of people I know.
And I was about to ask about that part, like, in terms of like, is there anything underway to like work with employers to recognize that women are actually taking time off for family care, and like to work with women so that this is not even a factor as they're trying to re-enter the workforce?
Yeah, I think we've had businesses now come to the table. So as we are communicating with different chambers of commerce and different business stakeholders, for the first time, our ministers have been hearing from the business community about this issue. Never before, before it was all about, it wasn't as much as of a concern as to how do I retain my employees. Now there's a big concern, and they're seeing women exit the workforce, and they may have been some of the best employees that they had. And so more and more we're hearing from the business community very loudly that we need to have a better program in place so that they can get their employees back to work. that wasn't the case before. Before we were arguing about childcare for the last 50 years in this country, but we never had businesses at the table also advocating for that. Now businesses have it as one of their priorities, that they want a feasible program for their employees so that they can profit from it, right? They can make more, and their bottom dollar is what matters to them at the end of the day. And this serves their bottom dollar. Having this in place helps businesses grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the best approach, you know, rather than coming down heavy-handed to get stakeholder buy-in. But what we are also seeing too, like, is a huge shift to, like, you know, more socially responsible businesses. And, you know, like, if you know, you feel like, you know, before there was this whole, what they call a triple bottom line, the people, profit, and planet. But I think there's more of an emphasis on, you know, like, people and planet, and not so much profit, because when you advocate a lot for profit publicly, you know, like, I mean, I think you're kind of seen a certain way, but when you advocate for people and planet, I feel like it drives profit without you having to even focus on profit.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that more and more companies actually are down with the environmental plans. They're down with the carbon pricing. They actually have their own built in, like, you know, like Loblaws, lots of big companies in our country have their own goals set, right? So the government may have a net zero goal, and by the time we get to, you know, different targets by the time we get to 2030 and 2050. But companies have their own goals. They were already setting goals that were more ambitious than the government. So there are a lot of those companies, and it's good as a consumer, I think, to be aware of that and to reward companies that are caring and doing their part. But you did ask me about you know, an anti-racism strategy, and I think that's something also that through this pandemic we've seen a lot. You know, so we've seen, of course, our small businesses get hit. You know, the female population has been disproportionately affected, but our minorities, you know, BIPOC communities have seen this pandemic hit them worse than anywhere else, whether it's the essential workers, and we definitely have more BIPOC people that are working on the front lines in this pandemic, that haven't been able to work from home, that have been working in long-term care, in the hospitals, trucking, manufacturing. In Brampton, we're the hub of food, beverage manufacturing, and a lot of other warehouse type employment situations. And we're a logistic hub as well. And so those people have been on the go nonstop. And we've seen that the numbers have been truly high in this area as well. So it's good to see right now that the rollout of vaccines has sped up into this area. I'm really glad to, announce, and I think within our communities, we have to all do our part to get vaccinated, show people that we are true leaders, and we're not we are promoting and preaching what we actually do. Right. And I think through that, we're seeing more and more people are coming around to getting vaccinated. Our numbers are picking up. In Brampton, we're almost at 70%, whereas the Ontario average is 60%. So we're speeding. We had higher cases, but we're also progressing really nicely with the vaccinations. And that's the only way to bring those numbers down. 12 and up are eligible for vaccines now in Brampton. That's not the case in different parts of the country. So I think we're moving quicker to try to get more people vaccinated. My 12-year-old niece just got vaccinated 2 days ago. So very exciting. So let's encourage our communities, because I do know I am hearing from my own staff and a lot of people in the community that there is still a stigma about trust with vaccination, trusting the healthcare system, especially when it comes to minority communities, African communities. That trust is not there, and that's not their fault. That is because the system has at many times, not looked out after their best interests in the past. In terms of businesses, there is a big announcement, like in this budget. The Black community was referred to 121 times in different ways, and that's more than ever before. So there are different support programs that are going to be rolling out. And for that, I have to say, I think one of the biggest the one that people are most interested in is the Black Entrepreneurship Program. I think that one is the most popular. And so there is going to be a big announcement and coming out sometime by the end of next week as to what that program is going to look like. So keep your, ears open about that announcement. When I was saying, the budget is a high level document and then the programs are then created after, right? The programs are not created before the budget. We then take a look at what's there in terms of money, and the ministers take a close look to see, okay, what have the stakeholders in this under my portfolio been asking for, and how can I create a program that can funnel this money down into the communities. And so that is going to be announced very soon. And my office has weekly updates we give out to the business community about different programs they can that are available for them that they can apply to. So you can try to get it on our email list if you like. Contact my office and we can give you put you on that weekly list that gives you an update as to all the different business programs coming out. So I think that is the big one, but there are a whole lot of other ones. There's the new Black-led philanthropic endowment fund that is this is a new program that is going to be created by the federal government. So keep your eyes out for that. But that's why it's important to be involved and to be connected with your local members, because there are whole programs you can miss out on. And businesses that don't have a specific person hired to constantly be monitoring and doing their grant writing for them, oftentimes we've seen in the past have been left out, but we've been having a lot of these conversations, trying our best to not give money to the same old groups and trying to see how we can fund new people that have never been funded before. But it's important. And I think there's some great groups like Startup Canada and different groups. Startup Peel has a great woman, Melanie Campbell. I don't know if you guys know Melanie Campbell, but I think it'd be great for you guys to contact her. She's a great, strong Black female that is leading Startup Peel here in the Brampton area. And she knows how to connect small businesses that are starting out and give them the tools that they need to make sure that they have their finances in order, their accounts, business plan, all those things, how to incorporate all those things you need in order to apply for these things later on, right? Because otherwise you won't be able to apply for these programs. The government wants to see that you are a legitimate business. They also want to protect themselves from fraud, right? And they can't just give money out to anybody that says that they have a good idea. They also need to see that idea backed up, right? With some investments, with them having started their idea, showing proof that they're putting something into this. And so the government will also help out. So that's important, and that's hard to do at the beginning. So I think reach out. There's a whole bunch of different programs the city has, that Startup Peel has, that I would advocate for, because they can get you off the ground. And that's really important. I see a lot of businesses that come to me that say they have an idea, but an idea alone, I think you have to go to these incubators and startup groups to get that idea off the ground first.
Absolutely.
And then later on you can grow that idea, say you need more capital, say you need to money for R&D or expansion of employees. That's when I think when you get yourself off the ground, that's when government can help you go further.
Yeah, there's some great tips there.
Yes, great tips. And I'm glad you said a couple things like making sure you plan. In my sense, I heard plan it accordingly, so you'd be able to research the proper ways to write a grant, or to have the investments and everything, just to make sure that you do get these opportunities that is out there. And also getting into those email listings or looking into your community on how you can actually be involved, because I think the issue is, for a lot of people, they rather just like word of mouth. And they're like, oh, I can never find these things. All these people get all this money and I can never get the money. But Ruby, I'm glad that you said that you rather spread it out evenly to others, because you don't want the same person constantly getting because
Yeah.
it's not fair in a
Yeah.
sense, and you just want to, to make it a little bit fair. So I'm glad you have that in place.
Yeah, we are trying, and we're trying to keep track of that.
Yes.
And members on the ground, like local representatives like myself, can advocate for some groups that we know we've seen are doing good work on the ground, whether they're a for-profit or a
Yes.
not-for-profit. Different things are available for different people. So keep yourselves informed. That's really important when it comes to
Absolutely.
this. True. That is.
And we are going to be taking a close look at some of those programs so that we
Yes.
can talk about them on the podcast.
Absolutely.
And with our community and our clients, etc. Because we play a real big part in like connecting the community with needed information. And I love the fact that you highlight getting your business incorporated, getting a business bank account. Like I teach entrepreneurship at TDSB, and I also teach it on other platforms. And it's surprising how many businesses out there, they don't even fully understand the difference between an incorporation versus sole proprietor, etc., or how to actually do it, right, or how to set up a business account. So these things they're crucial, right? It sets you apart from someone who has an idea, right?
Yes.
And it says that you're serious. It says that you are a legitimate business. So I'm super excited and impressed with the work that yourself and your team they're doing for the community and in the fight against anti-Black racism. Myself, I've been privileged to be a part of the economic committee for the Black North Initiative. That's also doing great work across Canada to fight anti-Black racism. So super excited. It's an honor to have you and to hear what is going on. The things I wish I knew about money. We are always here inspired and bringing great information to the people.
We have a secretariat that was created a couple of years ago as well, that's solely focused on within the Ministry of Diversity Inclusion, only focused on anti-Black racism. And so there is a lot of conversations. I am a member of Black Caucus as well, and the Parliamentary Black Caucus, which involves all of the different parties. So we are trying to work on different ideas and make sure that we address community issues in a timely manner. But school is also very important, and so there's people are in their school life has really been upset right now, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't made the income that they're supposed to make in order to go back to school, college, or university, all of those things. So the government is going to extend the relief on interest on student loans until 2023.
For the folks, because I'm done. I
paid off my own stuff already.
But for everyone else,
you're great then, because I just paid off my OSAP, and I still have some law school just a little while ago. So it wasn't that long ago. I had huge loans. I only went to school on loans, basically 100%, and law school was very expensive. And so yeah, it was it's a lot. My husband had a lot too. So we are because he went to he's in the medical profession, and so
oh boy, that's expensive.
We had two big loans. Yeah. So it's okay. It's a part of you paying up front to have an opportunity. It's an investment. It's an investment. Right. You're paying it off for a long time, that investment, but we have to make things cheaper. We have to make it more affordable and more appealing for students to actually go to school. So the grant program has also been doubled so that more people can be eligible, not just for loans, but to not have to pay back that money. So when you get a grant, you don't have to pay it back. And I think more students need the benefit of grants so that they'll be able to actually
absolutely.
So look into that.
For them.
Yeah, it's been increased up to 6,000 for full-time students and 3,600 for part-time students. So take a look at that. And there's also other opportunities for those that have qualify in the disability category and all of that. So that will be important for people. And then I think the other thing I hear big mostly about, even as I was making calls earlier today, is affordability. How can my, how can my young adult child get into the housing market? How will they be able to, with the wages being what they are today, afford and be able to have a life like their parents had once upon a time? And so that is a big question, I think, on a lot of people's minds. And there is in the budget some steps towards helping relieve this hot market, but I know it's not going to be the end all be all of measures we may have to take in the future.
Yeah.
Right now, we have increased the tax on foreign buyers with vacant properties. That's a big problem in Toronto.
Right.
I don't know how much it is in the Peel region, but we, along with that, have changed that home buyers incentive that we announced a couple of years back.
Right.
That home buyers incentive, we got a lot of feedback, and we were saying it to begin with, some of the local representatives, that it's not going to cut it in our areas because you can't get a home for the $500,000 and $5,000 that was allowed for in that home buyers incentive. So that's been increased. As of last week, there was an announcement on that. You can go to CMHC, the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, to go take a look at how you can qualify. We've increased it up to $722,000 for a home. And that is a little bit more realistic. You can maybe get yourselves into a condo or a townhome in areas around here. But we've also increased the income. It could have only been up to 120,000, and now we've increased that up to 150, so that more people can still take advantage of this program and aren't cut off after a certain amount of income, because we know in the metropolitan areas, that kind of an income still doesn't make it affordable for you to get a home. So even if you think you make good money, it's still tough. And so with this incentive program, you get the government basically paying a portion of your down payment down for you that you don't have to repay back. So take a look at that. Take a look at that. It can get you into that first property at least, so that you can be on that ladder to home property investment and home ownership.
Looks like I have to come to Peel.
Peel is the place, man. I'm telling you, that's why I moved here. Well, I've always been in Peel because I was in Malton before, and then I moved to Brampton. I love Peel. Great community. This
program is for Vancouver and the Toronto areas. And certain postal codes are involved.
I mean, it's not just Peel.
No. It's not just Peel. It's Toronto for the most part, but we do fall into that. So take a look at that if you haven't bought a home yet and you are looking to invest. Although I would also say, and you guys probably know better because you host this program, that waiting isn't such a bad thing right now, because I know there are some investors that will say, oh, property will always just go up, so don't wait. But I think that supply had kind of been put on hold because of the pandemic and lumber costs, a whole bunch of supply chain issues, happened. And I don't know if the pandemic was necessarily, I think there was a lot of panic buying that started happening and caused prices to really skyrocket.
It's the FOMO, it's the same fear of missing out that's in the stock market. It's like when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were thinking that it was going to crash, but then when people realize that it's not going to crash, everybody starts to jump on board. Right? So
you're right. That's what it is. So I think things are stabilizing as of the last couple of weeks. We're seeing the market stabilize a little bit. You might see that further, or and you've seen the Bank of Canada make some statements around that as well. So I don't know, be informed, listen to your podcast so people can be informed and make the right decisions.
That's the best way. Listen to our podcast.
Yes, exactly. See, you heard it from Ruby. And let's see. We usually like to ask our guests, what are the 3 things you wish you knew earlier in your life? It could be about finance, politics, or anything.
Yeah, in terms of finance, I would say, I was right there, just like everybody else, getting that credit card when I started in university, maxing it out, doing all that stupid stuff that you're not supposed to do, thinking it's free money, or, just And so I would definitely say that if I knew what I know today, back when I was that age,
Yeah.
I would be a lot more responsible with my finances, have a budget. That's something that I have just over the recent years started to create. I've always just been a very, it'll work out type of a mentality,
Right.
just
Yeah.
do and things will work out type of a mentality. But I've learned from the error of my ways a bit, because although it's worked for me in some areas of my life, having that type of mentality to just go out there and do things and things will work out. It's a good mentality to have in some ways, but in terms of your finances,
Yeah.
I feel you can't get a proper grasp and a hold on what you're actually doing with your money until you sit down and make that budget, right? Like you write it all out, you can see where things are going. It may take some time out of your month each and every month, but I've realized that, oh my God, I made so many mistakes for the first 30 years, more than 30 years. More than for 30 years of so many years of my life, that I didn't know where the money was going. I wasn't tracking it, and I thought I was doing the right things, but I really wasn't. Like, so I would.
I have all the colognes on my dresser to look back and say, oh, these are all the terrible mistakes that I was making. But all these designer colognes.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know what the worst part is? Nobody in the mall ever tells me my cologne smells good. So why the hell am I paying so much money for it?
Yeah, you could probably get something comparable. You're right. I made those same mistakes though.
Yeah.
So I'm there with you, and I'm sure people like I made all of those same mistakes, and realizing now that there's a time and place for everything, and
Absolutely.
keeping up with the Joneses and all of that. It's not really like there are a lot of people that look like they may not be broke, but they actually are. And I think it's better to have your finances in order. In terms of politics, I would say what I learned, what I was expecting is a really nasty environment that I was heading into, a lot of cold, mean people, but that has been proven wrong. Actually, I think a lot of people that get into politics do get into it for the right reasons. I've met a lot of amazing people, amazing colleagues, never met like such amazing people in my entire life, not as a lawyer, definitely, and not in the past. And so I think people do have the wrong perception sometimes about how ugly politics is or politicians are. But there is an ugly side to it. There is a very partisan side to it where no matter what somebody does, whether it's good or bad, you're just going to oppose it or say there's something wrong with it. I mean, we definitely do see that. No matter what, if another party proposes an idea, the government doesn't like it because the government's going to say, well, it wasn't our idea. Versus, if the government does something good, the other parties are going to say it's horrible, even if it is good. Like, so there is a lot of that. And I think that frustrates people. But that's to some degree, I think there's some things can be done to increase the bipartisan cooperation, but to some degree it is always going to be there, and that's just the nature of politics, right? So you have to learn to work around that and see things for what they are, and there is some showmanship, but sometimes people deep down inside, even on the cross-party lines, they mean well, and you need to get to know them better to work with them and work across party lines. And in our committees, we do a lot of good cross-party work, but people don't see that. They only see question period where everyone's yelling at each other and fighting with each other. So
that's the fun stuff.
Yeah, that's the fun stuff.
Well, here we have it, Vibin with Ruby. Actually, my niece's name is Ruby, and I wrote a poem about her. I won't say the poem on the podcast right now, but yeah. So Vibin with Ruby, we got a lot of incredible information. Ruby, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time out and sharing the information with us and the community. Ruby is extremely passionate about the community, and the short time I interacted with Ruby, I've felt so inspired enough that I've told her that I wanted to volunteer on her team. And she incredible stuff, right? Connecting with the BIPOC community, women, and, you know, to continue the great work that you're doing for the community and for Canada at large. People, this is where we are, giving out great information, great tips. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. I'm going to turn it over to our beautiful host, Camille.
Ruby, once again, I enjoyed all the information that you provided. I hope people actually, ladies and gentlemen, listen to this numerous of times, because you've just hit the nail with a lot of things. And how do we get in contact with you? Once again, just in case they weren't listening at the beginning, how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so Ruby Sahota is my name. Sahota is the last name, and my office is at 50 Sunny Meadow Boulevard. So it's right by our Brampton Hospital, right behind it. So you can look me up on Google by my name. My phone number is there. My email address is there. It's 905-840-0505. The email address is ruby.sahota@parle.gc.ca. It's a little bit long, so that's why I say, as long as you can remember the name Ruby Sahota and Google it, then you can get all of that information. And so email, call, whatever. I know not too many people write and mail things in, but it is free to mail your member of parliament anything. You just have to drop it in the mailbox without a stamp, as long as it's got the member of parliament's information on it, and it will come to us for free. So that is another little tidbit. I don't think a lot of people use that anymore, though.
I didn't even know that. That's good to know.
Let me see where the one is in Scarborough, so I can.
You just, you just throw in a white envelope into the mail and it will go to them without any stamping or anything. So yeah, it is a little weird information that I didn't know either at first. So good for people to know. Yeah, good for people to know, but email is free as well. So email us, and that's probably the best thing. Let us know what you're thinking, what's on your mind. It's important. And if you do have politically interested and activated and motivated people that are listening to the podcast, I would say, like Andre just said, volunteering is the best way to get an idea about what politics is like, especially on a campaign. And I did do a little bit of that before getting into politics myself. I volunteered on a few campaigns. Some of the people that work for me, that's how they got their foot through the door. They just showed up as a volunteer. I never knew them before, and then offered them a job, of course, when they end up being a fantastic person, right? So that, don't forget the power of volunteering, no matter where it is, in your community. Different charitable organizations, they're looking for volunteers more than ever before, because COVID has, definitely had an impact on the charitable sector. So remember that as well. As things improve, reach out to your local charities, see if they need help, because they've been working hard through this pandemic. And so they need our support at this time, food banks, shelters, all that type of stuff. Yes. So don't forget them as well. Of course, you can volunteer on a campaign too, but don't forget the charities as well. That's important. And and get vaccinated and stay safe. And I know we have some.
I got my shot in arm already.
Good. Very good. Just want to encourage everyone, because we are seeing encouraging numbers. There is some optimism on the horizon, and we can get there. The faster we get through the vaccination process, we can get there very quickly. And so at least see some sense of normalcy return. I will say, though, we should never get overconfident. We should continue, and the government in Canada is going to continue monitoring numbers and giving very careful advice, because the pandemic is not going away yet. I mean, we have many other countries around the world that still need to get vaccinated. We live in a very small, as we saw, global community. And if one place is suffering, the whole world will soon see new variants. As we now know, most of the variants is what people are getting here in Canada. So, and there's no real safe way. There's no real way for us to completely shut down and not let those variants in. There's always a way they're going to get in, the way we are now reliant on the US for a lot of essential goods and a lot
Right.
of places, and we rely on a lot of essential workers from other places in the world too. So, and businesses rely on having those open borders to succeed. So we need you to get vaccinated, and then we will do what we can to make sure this extra vaccines and all of that that we've procured as a country can go to the countries that really need it the most, so that so we can bring this pandemic down. And I was just speaking to some of the Caribbean ambassadors as well, and they need our help in this area as well, so that the amount of travel we do to the Caribbean, CARICOM countries is huge in Canada, and we want to make sure we start that up again.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Big up, big
Andre's
up, big
waiting
up.
too.
Some great stuff.
Oh,
All right, all right.
awesome. Thank you so much, Ruby. And folks, there you have it. We gave you guys, ladies and gentlemen, insightful information, and that's the reason why we're here, to provide the community with all the knowledge that you can get and the resources. And now you know you can actually seek this information and be actually more involved with the community and volunteering. The power in volunteering. I was trying to remember that one. I was like, I love that saying.
Yeah.
And you know, we're just gonna close it off, folks. Please share, like, comment, anything, reach out to us. We're here. We're here to reach out to the family, you know, because that's what we're all about these days.
And Camille gonna wrap it up with the family tune.
Yep.
It's a wrap.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure being on today.
Ciao.